all the folks here in person, folks online. It's beautiful to see us gathered here together for practice this evening or this afternoon or this morning, no matter what part of the world you happen to be in. So this is the Tuesday tune-in, and the usual program is about a half an hour of, sorry, just one second. The usual program is about a half an hour of guided meditation, half an hour of Dhamma talk, and then a bit of time for reflections, questions, and dedication of merit at the end of the evening. Can everybody online hear me okay? Yeah? All right, thank you. Folks in person, you're stuck with what you're stuck with here, so feel free to get closer if you're having trouble hearing. Yeah, so this evening, I have several themes that I would like to weave together, but first we're going to meditate, and I offered a meditation on aligning the mind with the breath last Wednesday, and it went really well, and somebody said, oh, we could record it, so now we're going to get a chance to try that one again and see how it goes. They're always slightly different each time, even doing the same practice, but that is the theme of the meditation, which is just offered so you can see whether or not that method actually aligns with that result. So, let's see, do I need to make any announcements? The only announcement I will make is that the Vihara will be closed from tomorrow midday until Saturday. We'll be back for the Sunday program. And I will make one more, which is on December 8th, we're having the brunch, the Buddha's Enlightenment Day brunch. So that is here at the Vihara, right after the Sunday Dhamma talk on the 8th of December. All right, so with that, you can begin to settle into your meditation posture. And I always like to begin with a bit of movement. Perhaps loosening up a bit of tension or any tendency to lean toward the computer. And allowing the spine to come into a stacked, upright, balanced posture. If you're lying down, just letting the bones of the spine become straight. And relaxing the belly, allowing the body to settle right here, right now. Feeling the weight of the hips and the legs. Allowing them to be supported and relaxed. And slowly bringing the attention back up the torso. And wherever possible, releasing the muscles, letting the bones carry the weight. As you arrive at the neck and the head, also coming into alignment with the spine. And by now, perhaps the sensations of the breath have become apparent. And you can rest the mind on those sensations wherever you find them in the body. If you find that you have any tightness or wanting to control the breath, then you can observe it in the lower abdomen, down below the waist where we feel the echo of the breath. To align the mind with the breath is inwardly sighing with each part of the breath. A little sigh on the in-breath, a little sigh on the out-breath, just silently in the mind. The mind becomes more aligned with the breath. You might notice the movements of the breath, those moments where there is a shift from the stillness of the pause. At some point, letting go of the pause and the sigh, and just allowing the mind to ride along the length of each breath. After some time of following the breath, you might notice the feeling tones associated with the breath. Is it neutral? Is it unpleasant? Or is it pleasant? Checking in moment by moment. And in these last few moments of the meditation, checking in with the qualities of the mind. How is the mind of this moment? Is it busy or quiet? Constrained or spacious? Right, so that brings us to the next part of the program, which is the Dhamma talk. If you have any reflections or questions about the meditation, we can take those later at the end. Mm. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So a few years back, I, for some reason, needed to get a new copy of my birth certificate. And so I wrote to the folks there in Florida. I was born in Florida. And asked them to send me a new copy. And they did. And they wrote a little letter together with the copy of my birth certificate that they sent and said, you know, your birth was not recorded until 6 years after the fact. And sure enough, if you look at my birth certificate, the signature of the clerk is 6 years later. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So is that really the true story? Was I really born on that day at St. Francis Hospital in Miami Beach to Judith and Gabriel, or not? That hospital isn't there anymore. That street has been renamed. And I have a piece of paper that says that it happened. But you know, it puts me in mind of that very famous Chinese koan. What are you before your parents were born? What is your face before your parents were born? In other words, what is this thing, this life, without all of those markers of identity that we think are so fixed and true? And I'm not particularly interested in talking about the koan tonight. I'm more interested in talking about those markers. Because ultimately they are. like signposts in empty space. Not really that helpful in terms of a direction, in terms of giving us some information about where to go or what to do, or even about what happened in the past. Mm. Yeah, so there are many ways that identity has been spoken about in Buddhism. But if we look at the early texts, the pointers that we get are often about coming back to this lived experience of body and mind of this moment and understanding what's here. And we use this phrase, coming back, right? But there isn't any coming back. It was never anywhere else but here. And so there's a beautiful sutta that that was given by the historical Buddha many, many years ago. And actually, for some people, it can be kind of an upsetting sutta. It's a sutta where the Buddha uses a metaphor of a monkey getting caught by something sticky, getting trapped. But ultimately, what he says is, he gives a teaching about our ancestral home, what he called our ancestral home. And I really appreciate this phrase because even the way that different translators have chosen to translate this phrase tells us a little something about how we think about who we are. So Bhikkhu Bodhi, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, tends to translate it as that, as ancestral domain. That's his translations are the ones that I'm often working from when I'm giving the talk. Venerable Analio, so friend on the way, and well-known also translator who works often with the Chinese text alongside the Pali text. He calls it home turf. He used something a little more colloquial. What's our home turf? And Gil Fronsdal, so another teacher from the San Francisco Zen Center lineage that I have practiced with in the past, calls it our native land. Our native land. And what is it that the Buddha calls our ancestral home? Does he call it our place where we were born, or our place where we live, or where our parents are from? No, it's not even a place. And the Buddha says, the four foundations of mindfulness, the four establishments of mindfulness are our ancestral domain. Quite a fascinating statement, huh? So what are the four establishments of mindfulness? They are the body, the feeling tones, right? So this thing that I pointed out during the meditation, which is this sort of underlying sense of an experience as being either pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. The qualities of mind, so we looked at those briefly at the end of the meditation, not the content or the activity of the mind necessarily, but the qualities, you could say the tones of the mind. And then the Dhammas. So the Dhammas has been that word Dhamma. If you look it up in any Pali English dictionary, you might find 26 or 27 or 28 different translations of that word. In this case, it means something like the states, the particular states of mind. So the Dhammas, the Dhammas are, or sometimes I call them the principles. So the Dhammas are like the 7 factors of awakening, for example, are included in the Dhammas that are mentioned as the foundations, the 4 foundations. But to say that these different aspects of mindfulness is our ancestral domain, it's our home turf, it is the place that we come from, is to point at awareness, this beautiful, receptive, attentive, clear, non-judgmental quality that we call mindfulness as our home. So in a sense, the sort of subtle meaning there is something like it's unconstructed. You know, you don't have to build your case for mindfulness. It is the capacity of the mind already. We might choose to direct it to one type of experience or another, or to one type of phenomena or another. But that essential instrument is there. And part of the reason why I'm giving this talk tonight is because, we were having a conversation actually last night in the Spanish Dhamma class about something like trust in who we are, or the class is about investigating the sense of self and non-self. And in particular, last night's class was about how to conduct that investigation. And so in the course of the conversation, it came up, how do we develop a kind of confidence in our own capacity on the path? And in talking about that, what really came together for me was the way in which this thing as an instrument of response is always true. And that's the only thing that we need to find our trust in. That this body and mind is actually built in such a way that it responds to everything. So we worry whether or not we'll be able to respond to what's going to happen in our lives, or whether or not our history or our past will ruin our ability to respond in the moment. But actually, we never had an alternative. We live as a response in the moment. Indeed, we are nothing but a response to the conditions and the principles of reality that are at work in this moment. And that is where mindfulness comes from. Our capacity to be aware of it, our capacity to be awake right in the middle of it, to know this thing, this instrument. You could hear a million teachings, but they won't actually mean anything to you until they mean something about your own life. And it is only through your mindfulness, through your awareness of your own experience, that you can discern that you can discover that for yourself. That you can discover that that's actually where we live. Even think about it, even when you're far away, even when you're dreaming of vacation in Tahiti, right? Some aspect of awareness is involved. So the Buddha says, contemplate in the four foundations of mindfulness. He gives these very, very specific instructions. So he says, contemplate the body or the feeling tones or the mind or the principles or states ardently. Ardently. Like it was the most important thing in your life. More important than whether your birth certificate is right or not. Clearly comprehending. Clearly comprehending. Yeah. This one I think is the hardest one, the clearly comprehending. Because it's so easy to fall into the habit of just skimming over. Oh yeah, I know that. I understand that. I have a word for that, and therefore I know what it is. Mm? That's a very common mistake on the path also, right? We have all these great lists. Oh yes, I can tell, I can rattle off the list, therefore I know what it is. But have you clearly comprehended how that exists in your own body and mind? How that quality is manifesting or not? Of course, mindful. And this last one, having removed covetousness and displeasure for the whole world. Right? So setting aside wanting it to be some other way. And just knowing it as it is. Seems obvious. But to be fully what you actually are, it takes a tremendous generosity of heart, a tremendous generosity toward yourself. To not set aside one part or another and leave it in the shadow. that kind of generosity. It's a very vast heart, very vast mind. And when that happens, if that happens, then you will be becoming even more you, moment by moment. Katagiri Roshi, he was a very interesting character here. I didn't meet him. He died before. He maybe even died before I was born. I'm not sure. Maybe not that early. But anyway, well, we don't know when I was born, so hey, it's hard to pin it down. But anyway, Katagiri Roshi was one of the Japanese monks who came over from Japan to practice with and help Suzuki Roshi build San Francisco Zen Center. Then he eventually went off and started his own, with Suzuki Roshi's blessings, of course, went off to start his own place in Minnesota, I believe it is. But anyway, Katagiri Roshi said, he said something like, "Let the flower of your life force bloom. Settle the self." Now I remember the full quote. "Settle the self on the self and let the flower of your life force bloom." And I would say, being the cheeky one that I am, it's always happening that way, Roshi. We don't need to make that choice. We just need to be willing. To be willing to be clear about it, to be willing to be generous with it, to be willing to hang in there with ourselves. So no matter where you're from or who your parents are or what your old stories are, your ancestral home is not far away. So see if you can live there. See if you can live there with your big heart and your big mind and all those parts, those grasses, those weeds, those flowers, whatever it is. All right, friends, so that is what I wanted to share with you this evening. And I'm not sure that I wove together all the themes, but I think it covered the heart of it, so to speak. Now we have a bit of time for comments, questions, reflections, corrections. Anything you would like to share about the talk, about the meditation? Yes, Arev. Here's the mic. Let's see. I think, hold on one second. Let me just make sure that the mic is on. Yep, it's working.
And everyone hear me?
Yep, give a
Perfect.
thumbs up.
Yeah. So I guess what you were talking about, maybe I guess just reminded me of, I guess the way I kind of try to summarize or try to get to the fundamental part is, and definitely correct me if you see it differently, but so no matter essentially what appears within our experience, whether thought, emotion, sensation, it's essentially being aware of what's appearing and not resisting it. And by practicing that, I think you sense some, not maybe not separation, but a constant, which is other than the thought or the sensation. Is that somewhat like your presence?
So here's what I would say, Arif. I would
Mm-hmm.
say all the way up to the most of that first part,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then what you see, what you experience when you're aware of all that is actually the non-separation of this thing. You see how this is, you know, like a wave on the ocean of all of these principles of reality, right? We're woven into the fabric of
Mm-hmm.
the truths of everything.
The thought or the whatever.
Right, the thought, literally any thought, any emotion, any sensation, anything that's going on with your body, all of those things are in fact um, demonstrating for us what are the universal principles that are at work in this specific form. And that's the thing that we have to be able to hold at the same time, this idea that there is this universal expression that's happening right in the midst of, or as you could say, the specifics of our life. So that's why if we try to cut anything out, then it's like saying, oh, that part isn't reality. Oh, well, of course, it is equally reality, right?
But is that other part who we are, or are we just the awareness?
Well, so again, are we anything other
Right.
than
That
the actual activity itself?
right. And I guess it's hard because it's a non-object, right? It's just an experience. So even talking about it, right? Like isn't like the finger that points to the moon isn't the moon. Like no matter how much we talk about this thing, our words aren't always, directly what that is. Or you're saying it's kind of more connected than I think it is.
So there are a couple of ideas mixed in there with those. So the yes, when we conceptualize
Right.
a thing,
Mm-hmm.
it is difficult to capture the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to my friend the other day. There's again, keeping with the identity example that I'm trying to use this evening. I was talking to my friend the other day who's known me for many, many, many years. And we were starting to hang up, and she said, okay, bye, one of many names, woman of many names. And I laughed and I said, but none of them captures it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a really good Zen laugh, because it is like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? None of them captures a rev.
Right.
A rev doesn't capture what's going on here. And yet, for the sake of
Right.
ability to, move around in the world, we call it that thing. But is there anything wrong with the name of rev or with the concept of rev? Not necessarily. It's capturing some portion of it. And it is also, right?
Part.
It is also one of the parts.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I know it was a very big, vast topic today, but don't all jump in at once now. No, you're all ready to go off and practice it. Okay,
Yeah.
it's all 100% clear. Yeah, okay.
Not calling our attention.
Thanks, Patrick.
I thought calling our attention to the Vedanas during the meditation was helpful for me.
Mm.
And it does seem like a really fundamental thing. Like there's certain aspects of my experience that are like, oh yeah, I like that. And then there's others that are like, oh, I don't like that. That might be different aspects for different people, but I think that's pretty universal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And that concept of Vedana is really helpful, I find, because it's a little bit of a flag, right? If we can stay close to the Vedana, it means we can stay close to that contact point, to like that experience point. Right. Okay. This thing is happening, you know? So in a way, it's a very, very helpful mark. It's one, to me anyway, it's one of the Buddha's most brilliant concepts, you know, just to identify that as something that we can perceive and that is present with our experiences and sort of help us to know how to look in a way that might be clear. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for the reflection. Mm. All right. Well, it's a very quiet evening for question and answer tonight, I guess. Yes, Dick.
It just seems that the appropriate response is just silence. Yeah.
I'm happy with silence too. That's fine. That's really fine. Thank you for that reflection, Dick. All right. Going once, going twice.
One more.
Oh, you have another hand? Okay, yes, Deborah, please unmute your mic there.
But I'm not going to reflect on the evening. I just wanted to put out there for the Sangha the thought about on a Sunday, not this coming Sunday because we're having a brunch, but of getting together after we meet on Sunday to go to a cafe or something like that to continue our fellowship. So I'm going to just send that thought out there. And I don't know how to invite people to do something like that. Hamsa and I have had an experience like that in Vienna, but
Yeah, I think it's a lovely idea, Deborah. And actually, it could happen this Sunday because the brunch isn't this Sunday, it's the following Sunday, the 8th. But in any event, yeah, I know several sanghas where that's kind of an informal thing where people just kind of, you know, check in with each other as they're leaving and see if they want to go. And usually they have a, you know, kind of regular place that they go to. So if folks, you know, are late or have other plans or something, they know for the next week. So let's talk about it on Sunday. I'll be back. We can work it out. Okay. Thanks for putting that idea out there. Yes. Stig, did you want to say something more or you were just waving back at Betsy?
Just waving, right?
Okay. All right. Good to go. Lovely. And for folks online, always a treat to see you. I want to say, you know, even if you can't be here, you're in our hearts. You are very, very much a part of our Sangha, and yes, very, very much a part of our community in so many ways, no matter whether you are far or near. So I really appreciate all of you, truly. All right, folks, so with that, I would like to dedicate the merits of our practice this evening, dedicate the beneficial karmic momentum and results to clarity and peace of mind and heart of all beings, known and unknown, seen and unseen. May all beings realize relief from mental and physical suffering. May all beings realize themselves as Dhammas. May beings find their way to compassion and wisdom. By the power of the Buddhas, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and each one's efforts, may all beings be free. All right, friends. Take care. Be well.